Hi, welcome to this session on e-prescribe. In this session we're going to talk about the patient's pharmacy, the various ways to e-prescribe within Cerner, describe where to look up the patient's insurance information, any previous prescriptions that were written on the patient or prescribed in any way, and to be able to describe the prescription failures that will load into Cerner and the message center and to how to respond to that. So the first thing is to click on the patient's pharmacy and actually review and make sure the pharmacy is correct prior to e-prescribing. This will be done by nurses and pharmacy techs, but we want to be able to make sure that prior to e-prescribe that you verify the pharmacy for accuracy. So if there's a button up on the top of Cerner, you would see it's called Patient's Pharmacy. You could click that button. If you don't see that button, you can go to the chart menu option, go all the way down where it says Patient Pharmacy, which will always be there. You can click on that and it will load the Patient's Pharmacy module where you can look up the pharmacy. And you would search the pharmacy by city and state. And it is true you can prescribe anywhere in the United States where the pharmacy might be found. You could also type in a few letters of the pharmacy's name. For instance, I've typed in here Binghamton and then CVS, and you notice all the different CVS's, and you could select one from here. I'm going to select a test pharmacy, and I'm going to search just by name. And the way to add the pharmacy to the patient's profile is to right click, and notice if you hover over it gives you information about the pharmacy. But if you right click and then select add, it adds that pharmacy to the patient's preferred pharmacy. You can absolutely add as many pharmacies as you would like to the preferred pharmacy tab here, so a patient could have several. You could click close once you're happy with that, and so that's how you would define the pharmacy. Next, I would like to demonstrate that you actually can click on this RX plans. Notice it gives you the date and time, but it will check eligibility on whatever medications depending on what plans they're on. So currently it's selected the Plan ZZ, which is a patient's sample insurance plan. And based on that plan, you can see that this medication is preferred. It's in green. This green colored icon means it's preferred, and if you let it hover, it says your formulary status allowed. And so someone had prescribed Augmentin on this patient, and it was a preferred drug. So drug eligibility is dynamically checked. The next thing I want to talk about is external RX history. This button, external RX history, it will show you all the other prescriptions that the patients had over the year prescribed by anyone else in the United States. So it downloads this data from the SureScripts database, the pharmacy database of the nation. So if you click on external RX history, this permissions will be here. So this patient has consented that you can look up their information, and if they denied, you'd say consent denied. But if you're the person taking care, most of the time you'd select consent granted, and you would see that this patient over the last 12 months has not had any medications prescribed. You can also go back, say, all 24 months and notice that they were on all these medications. It tells you last filled, the details of sig quantity, last filled, date written, RX, and drug name. Alternatively, you can go say, show me all prescriptions that were written for this patient, and notice how it populates a long list. And in that list you can see, for instance, oxycodone was prescribed, it was preferred, it was prescribed on this date, and it was last filled on this date, and their SIG was there, and then it also tells you pharmacy where all the data behind and the prescriber itself. So this is a fake patient, and all the data in here is fake, just to remind you that none of this is real. But it is true that any prescription checking whether you wrote it or it was done electronically, would show up in this SureScripts database. And then you can click Close. This kind of gives you a history of the external, what has been prescribed prior. And at this note, I'd like to make 2 points. One, which is VA pharmacies may not show up in the pharmacy patient pharmacy lookup. The search here, VA pharmacies might not be found. And also, in the state of New York, one cannot do e-prescribing for controlled substances. And that is, those prescriptions need to be done by paper or faxed. So this oxycodone was probably done by someone else in another state. May have been e-prescribed or written. But we know for sure in this current system in New York State, we are not allowed to e-prescribe on controlled substances. So we want to talk about prescription failures. In case you have prescribed something in Cerner, within minutes usually, you will see that there's this button called routing errors, and you can click on that, and you notice that this prescription has failed on this patient. This patient is fake. So if you open this patient up, you will see that this prescription failed due to X, Y, and Z reasons. Usually in the background this has tried multiple times, sometimes in the teens, and it has just failed. And so the response to this is to click on the pharmacy here, from which pharmacy did it fail, and you will see that there what the prescription was, and you'll also see the phone number. So the workflow here is you would call it in, or you would write a prescription and fax it. So you can see the fax number here also. So there's 2 options, call it in or fax it in. That is the preferred way of handling prescription failures. Next we want to talk about how do you actually e-prescribe. So if you go to the patient's chart, you can prescribe by clicking the add button, and then you will be in this format. You will be in the inpatient orders dictionary. All you would do is click this drop down and go to discharge meds as RX, and let's do that. Let us prescribe ciproflox. So now I see there's non-formulary options, and then there's formulary options. So I would stick to formulary options for affordability. Maybe I want 500 oral once a day for 3 days. So I would select the order sentence, click OK, and then click Done. And here the ciprofloxacin has loaded. It says 1 tab POBID for 3 days. It'll dispense 6 tabs. And and here under refills I would say 0 refills. And notice how it says send to on the here where it's going to send the electronic prescription. Currently the patient's defaulted pharmacy is test. So that's where once I click sign, it's going to send this prescription to this test pharmacy. And prior to sending, it's going to give you a window of basically the prescription that you're about to prescribe, and make sure that you're okay with it. And if you're not okay, you could click this modify button, and it would allow you to go back and modify the prescription prior to actually e-prescribing. So once you click sign, the prescription's gone to the pharmacy, and you can't really kind of get it back at that stage. Once it's gone, it's gone. So that's why there's that extra step. Now if you click refresh, the refresh button, you will see that the prescription ciprofloxacin has been sent, and it says prescribed, and it is on formulary. A second way to e-prescribe is to do it under discharge medrec. If you click discharge, notice your discharge meds have been kind of done out. You have amoxicillin that was prescribed, Cipro that we just prescribed. One can click add on the top left here, and then search for, let's say we would want to give Pepcid, right? So here's Pepcid, 10 AC oral tablet, and 1 tab POBID. Click OK. Click Done. And notice it's the same screen. It's showing you 1 tab POBID, and the refill would be 0. Maybe I want to just prescribe for 60 tabs, 1 month supply, and click sign. So what this does is not only does it complete your discharge medrec, it also allows you to e-prescribe. Once you click sign, now you have e-prescribed your meds as well as done discharge medrec, all in one swoop. So to just review, you want to make sure that you've done the patient's pharmacy, that you know how to prescribe in the various ways, that you know how to look up the patient's insurance and change insurance plans as needed from the drop-down here. You want to make sure that you know how to address prescription failures by clicking on Message Center and looking at the patient's pharmacy and calling those prescription failures in. You want to be able to look up the external RX history and see what the patient has been on over the last X number of months or years, depending on what you're looking at. It will show you what the patient's been taking. And that's it. Thank you.